Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And today we're going to talk about growth. And I think with podcast growth, it's always forefront on people's minds, especially when they have a podcast. But obviously, it's linked to the growth of your business, which again is linked to your mindset and your growth mindset. So today I'm excited to talk to Dana Earhart, a business growth strategist. And we've chatted before and it was like lots to talk about. So I'm excited about the energy that you bring today and such a great topic. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am excited to be here, and you're absolutely right. We just totally hit it off. So I'm excited to see where this conversation
Yeah,
goes today.
absolutely. So I think, people are podcasters are very focused on podcast growth when they have a podcast and they're looking at all these very specific strategies, monetizing the whole nine yards. But I love your approach. So that's why I kind of want to take a step back and think about business growth on a whole. And then also how we hear growth mindset and it's kind of like this fluffy term, but how can we bring that so that we can reach those goals? And you said something before we started, and I got shivers when you said it. So just kind of like taking it back with that end in mind. Can you
Yep.
kind of, I'm doing it a disjustice here, but can you go into that?
Absolutely. And this is where it is 100% applicable to just building your business in general, and specifically when you're looking to grow a podcast, is really think about the end in mind, or think about 1 year from now. What is it that you really want to be celebrating that you accomplished in growing your podcast? And are you after, increased listenership? Are you looking to bring in prospects into your community that can easily convert into clients? Are you looking to be known as a thought leader? Or are you looking to get booked on other podcasts? And the key here is, I think I just rattled off 4 potential options, and really allow yourself to get clear that if you could achieve growth in one of those, what would the number one priority be? Because oftentimes I talk to people and they'll say, well, all of them,
I know.
I I want to bring listeners in, I want clients, I want to get booked. Well, if we approach it that way, if we approach that everything is a priority, we need to understand that nothing is a priority.
Ain't that
And
the
so it's
truth? It's kind of like being what is it, a master of everything and you're a master of none or something like that.
Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none. I think
Yes.
it's what, yes, absolutely. And it's not to say you cannot experience growth in each area. However, if you're really clear on one priority, and depending on which one you choose, you may naturally experience growth in all of them with the one as the lead priority.
That makes sense. And I feel like if you set all those goals, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then you're not focused on one of them, that you're not meeting your goals, and then you feel like a failure, and then it's demotivating, and then there's pod fade. Like, I think it just like crushes your soul a little bit when that happens. And maybe that's one of the reasons why podcasters do bail or say it doesn't work.
Absolutely. It's, I think as humans, we're designed to feel the reward when there's wins. And so it is, even from a mindset standpoint, from a subconscious standpoint, we want to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for success. And that's why a lot of times when you're working with a coach, consultant, we have you establish milestones. What are those benchmarks along the way that you can get the small wins? Because when we can go to bed at night celebrating something that we accomplished that day, we naturally want to get up the next day and repeat it, rinse and repeat, create a new celebration. And that's the same in podcasting. That's why you have multiple episodes. Each episode, you want to have a win that moves that needle one step closer to the year-long, the 5-year, the 10-year goal that you have.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. Yet I feel like we're just on autopilot and we want to be everything to everybody, and we compare ourselves to others as well. And that makes us want everything and not be focused, and so many variables.
Absolutely.
Um, now, so if you want to grow your podcast, um, what are some of the benchmarks that you need to set for yourself in order to get there? Like, what is the foundation that you need to lay down?
I think the foundation is, first, start with that end in mind. What are you looking to object or to accomplish 12 months out? And then kind of reverse engineer. So really honing in on specifically, what is it that I want to accomplish in the next 90 days? And understand that there may be other priorities that I call it parking lot. You're going to put it in the parking lot for Q2, Q3,
Mm,
Q4, so that you can really stay focused on, this is Q1 of your 12 month. What are the top priorities, the top initiatives that you're really going to be focused on? And certainly, from the actual podcast specifics, you're going to be the expert there. You're going to know how, meaning you, Lindsay, to lay the groundwork for what they can be doing there. But I think it's so often we overcomplicate.
oh,
We
heck
think
yeah.
things need to be more complex than they need to be.
Always.
And what is absolutely true in business, in podcasting growth, is complexity confuses, where simplicity is what will help you scale. And that, a lot of times I think people go rush over the basics because
Yeah,
they think it needs to be more complicated than it is.
I know. And I'm guilty and have been guilty of that. And yeah, sometimes it just takes another person to
Yep,
say, and a strategist like yourself, obviously, like, hey, let's look at the big picture. Let's scale it back and get to the core. And you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Why am I making it so hard?
absolutely. Absolutely. We become our own biggest bottleneck.
Oh,
And that's why it's so good to have someone else on the journey with us, to really help, lift the blinds for our blind
mhm.
spots and show us where we may be getting in our own way.
Agreed. Now you say, I've heard you say that business owners, people that we approach growth completely backwards.
Yes. Yes.
How do we do that? I don't want to do things backwards.
Well, and I think even if we're not careful, based on what I've even shared here today, we end up focusing and believing, first and foremost, that the focus needs to be on what we're doing. We create a laundry
Mm,
list of tasks of 100 items that need to get done, and we become a robot trying to just check those items off the list. And I'll be the first one to admit, I'm someone who, if I do have a list and I did something that wasn't on the list, I will put it on the list just so I can cross it off.
yeah.
But what's lost in that process is that we are forgetting, we're skipping over an incredibly fundamental opportunity, which is to focus on who we are being.
Mm,
And this is where the growth mindset really comes in, because if we want to achieve something that we have not yet achieved, it requires a different version of ourselves. It is the next level of Dana, the next level of Lindsay, that will be the leader that takes our podcast, takes our business to that next level. And so an exercise that I take my clients through is, when you accomplish the big goal that you're after, what will that require of you? How will you feel in that moment? First of all, there's going to be pride, there's going to be excitement, there's going to be all kinds of emotions, and we want you to really feel that. And then the next question is, what did it take to get there? What did the leader, the CEO of a
Mm.
multi-seven-figure business, who are they? And really understanding from the moment they wake up, what are their daily rituals? How are they conducting themselves, leading their team, leading their systems, understanding their numbers, growing their podcast, which in this case is absolutely part of it. What did they do to bring them to that end goal? And so it's the combination of who are they being and what are they doing? And when we align ourselves with what our goals require of us, who
Mm.
that requires us to be, when we align the beingness with the accomplishment of the goal, the doingness becomes much more natural.
Mm.
There's less resistance when we are being the person our goals require us to be.
Interesting. So instead of like, oh, I need to create this funnel, I need to write these emails, like that's not what brings the growth. It's how you change your thoughts, your behavior, your your, I guess, inner strategies, your daily life. Like it all is all encompassing.
It is all encompassing. And so I'm not saying that strategy is not
Yeah.
required, that action is not required. It most definitely is 100%. However, what we risk is if we are only focused on the doing, do, we may make it to the seven figures. We may make it to the multi seven figures. However, if we have not adjusted who we are being, the chances are much greater that we're
Mhm.
going to default back to getting the results of who we were being. It is not as sustainable. And the experience along the way is certainly not as much as enjoyable, because if we're not elevating who we're being,
Yeah.
there's going to be a constant disconnect between the beingness and the doing. And it's when those are aligned that it becomes a much smoother experience, and the results are typically much more sustainable.
Now, some people can't see the forest for the trees, or they're not necessarily super like self-aware. And so I'm just going to paint an example. So let's say they want to be a podcast host. They want to, be well known in their field. They want a podcast so that I don't even know what. Or let's say they want to write a book.
Mhm.
How do you frame your mind or even wrap your head around who do I need to be to make that happen? Like, do you look towards other people? Like, how do you make that shift?
Great question. Great question. And I'm a big proponent of continuous personal and professional development. So I'm going to make one clarification. It's not that I'm always reading or listening. I am studying other people's material. So I may listen to the same book 5, 6, 7 times because I believe in what they're saying, and I want to absorb it and ultimately have it become my own way of thinking and growing. So yes, other people are involved. I certainly have mentors. I invest in guidance from individuals who have skill sets in areas that I do not.
Mm.
Uh, and so that is certainly a part of it. And we want to make sure that when we are studying or learning from other people, that it's never done in a comparison way.
Mm.
It's done in an elevation way. It's about being true to who you are and who you're becoming, while also embracing that you can continually learn from others who have achieved what you're after or have experienced what you are going after as well.
Yeah, for sure. Comparing is the worst. It's so
It
human
is.
nature, but it's like, it's such a soul crusher.
Yes. It really is. And I love, there was a visual I saw once of swimmers, Michael Phelps, Olympic swimmer. He's head down swimming in a competition, and it was a split second capture of someone took a picture of one of his competitors coming out of the water and looking to see where Michael was. And it was in that second, he lost his groove. He lost his momentum. And that's a visual I like to keep, because while I do want to learn from others, it is never in a comparison way.
Yeah. What a great analogy. Now, what are the signs that we are like standing in our own ways? We're actually sabotaging our growth.
Yes, there's a number of them. And you heard me refer to bottlenecks before. And one of the biggest bottlenecks is that we are in our own way. And as a business owner, and most of the podcasts, most individuals who are looking to grow a podcast, you are an owner. Some of the biggest signs are you are literally running from meeting to meeting. Your calendar is packed. So you're just running, you're constantly feeling like you're up against the 8 ball. You're, working, doing things at the 11th hour. You're constantly in a state of putting out fires, and you're never allowing for time to just sit and be the CEO of your podcast, of your business, and really get grounded in what is it you want to accomplish today? What is it you want to be celebrating come Friday afternoon, to get really clear on what are your intentions? And then when Friday comes, celebrate those wins and also reflect on what could have gone better, what still felt clunky, where can I put more attention? So I think it's we forget to stop, reflect, and evaluate along the way, because we're constantly running and putting fires out and running meeting to meeting. Those are some of the biggest areas that I see CEOs fall. And most of the time, another way to classify that is that you're spending too much time in
Yeah.
the day-to-day operations of your business, and you're not pulling yourself out of the day-to-day to be that leader, to be the visionary. And then another key area is you forget to communicate your vision, your goals, your objectives to the team,
Yeah.
so that they understand as well. And I think that's another area that I see a number of people falter. They think the team understands, and yet if you ask the team, chances are they're not nearly as crystal clear as the CEO is.
No, they're too checking off the tasks and the to-dos,
Correct.
and yeah,
Correct.
can't see the path.
Yes.
I was just so like with podcasters, it's like there are still podcast hosts out there that are like editing their own stuff. They're uploading it into Libsyn. They're like, oh, I don't have time to do the social media posts. It's like they're still in the trenches, but they want to grow,
Right.
but they're being held back because of all that doing.
Yeah.
Do you find, or let me phrase this a little bit differently. How does fear kind of fall into that issue, whether it's fear of growth or fear of investing to get help to make it happen?
Absolutely. I think anytime fear comes up, it's a great opportunity to ask ourselves, is this fear real? Is my fear, my doubt, my skepticism, is that true? Or am I just looking to get in the way, to procrastinate, to self-sabotage? One of the best things as we are growing is there's a book out there now. Dan Martell wrote the book, Buy Back Your Time. And it is all about delegating and hiring to buy back your time. And so as the visionary, as the podcast host, your skill set is not best served doing it yourself. And If you hire someone to do that for you, it's just a matter of calculating what revenue needs to be created to make that a no-brainer, and then go do it. So I think anytime there's that fear or doubt, it's also a sign that you're not grounded in what you want to be creating, and you're not grounded in being 100% committed to creating that growth. There's, I think we've all seen the memes out there. There's a big difference between, are you interested in growth or are you committed to growth?
Mm-hmm.
Two very different experiences, two very different thought processes.
Very. And I always believe there's a solution for everything. Like if you're stuck, if you need more leads, if you something, there is always a solution, whether you can fix it yourself. And if you can't fix it yourself, get help that can. But it's hard for some people to make that leap, A, admit that they can't do something well,
Yep.
or B, to decide what to invest in.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think if we do look at the most successful leaders that have gone before us, one thing can be said, and the most successful leaders understand, and they are not threatened by hiring people who know more than they do in certain areas. That's how you grow a successful business. That's how you, as the owner, ensure that you are not the weakest link. Because if your fear of someone else being smarter in an area is keeping you from hiring that person, you just became the weakest link. You are the bottleneck in your growth. And so again, it's really all about checking ego at the door. And that's
Yeah.
I won't take us on a tangent, but I believe real leadership is about a movement. It's about getting a team behind a movement, which is the vision of the CEO. Where so often when we become a boss, as oftentimes I see it marketed out there, that's about ego. That's about who's in charge versus who's leading the movement. And when you have the desire to have a podcast and to grow a podcast, it is because you believe in a particular topic, in a platform, in a movement, and you want that movement to be exposed to as many people as possible. And that means staying in your lane as the visionary and as the one getting that movement out there, and hire and delegate the work that keeps you from doing
Yeah, 100%.
that.
Now, I find too that some entrepreneurs, they want a podcast because they know it's a great growth strategy for their business, or they want to guest on podcasts. But there's a lot, and I've seen this with some of my clients, that they're like, "Oh, but I don't want to create a video. Like I don't feel comfortable like going live. I like they want the thing, but they don't want to put themselves out there either." It's like, can't have both. How do you help people get over that mindset? Because I feel like that is such a blocker, like to be able to grow, and it's so common.
Absolutely. And I think it's digging deeper and finding out, why don't you want to do that video? Is there a fear around how you're going to show up? Well, what's the fear about? And chances are, when you dig deeper, it's that the individual wants to ensure that they are speaking to their audience, that they're resonating with the exact people that they want to work with, and that it's being done in a way to not waste their time, but to draw them in. All of that to say is, they're looking for structure. They're looking to understand, what is the strategy that I can be bringing to that video that could be promoting the podcast. I know that's been one of my hiccups for a number of years, and yet I can get on and have a conversation with you today, not knowing I don't have anything scripted out. We're having a conversation. And so I can do that. I also have spent 11 years. I show up on calls with clients and I don't know what questions they're going to ask before they ask
Right.
them. I don't know what they're facing, but it's also my intuition, my education, my experience, and bringing that to the table. What I felt I lacked was the marketing strategy to be getting on videos and really speak to people. I don't want to just get on video to just speak and, give
Totally.
you a diary of my day. That's not my style. I want to make sure that if I'm going in for 90 seconds, that I'm leaving you with some type of nugget and leaving you wanting more. That's the idea of marketing. And that's what anyone looking to grow a podcast wants to get really good at, knowing who it is they're speaking to, who is their audience, what are the challenges they're facing, and more importantly, what does their day look like? What are they experiencing that will be the red flag that
Mm,
they are up against that challenge? And that's when when you can speak their language and when you can speak to them, understanding what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, that's when they stop and they're like, oh, she's talking to me.
yeah.
Does she have a camera in here? How'd she know? That's what you want to be sharing. And you want to get to know your audience so well that those conversations are coming out, rolling off the tongue, without any problem. And then the fear disappears.
Yeah. So true. And so in wanting to grow and meet your goals, and like you said, we're like running on autopilot, going from task to task, meeting to meeting. How do you figure out like what is the thing that is holding me back? What is the gap that I need to fill to make me grow? Because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's certainly, bringing outside guidance in to help is absolutely one avenue to go about it. It's also getting real with yourself and asking the big questions. If you catch yourself um, scrolling on Facebook or, any of the social medias, if you catch yourself procrastinating,
Mm,
stop and ask yourself why. What am I avoiding right
right.
now? And again, sometimes that avoidance will be something that is going to cause you to get uncomfortable. It's what your goal requires, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. And, something I've been talking about recently with a couple of clients is, what would you rather have? Being uncomfortable because you're in the same place you were a year ago
Hmm.
and there wasn't growth? Or would you rather be uncomfortable because you're moving the needle forward? And when you think of it that way, when you think like, oh my gosh, I have been up against this challenge and I'm in the same place I was a year ago,
Yeah.
what are you willing to do to ensure that you're not in that same uncomfortable, no progress 1 year from now? And just like with practice, infants learn to crawl usually before they walk. Well, when you when you give yourself the continuous opportunity to face your fears, to get uncomfortable and to get comfortable being uncomfortable,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, you start moving so much faster,
Yeah.
so much more momentum is created. And then you're like, why did I waste so much time being scared to do this?
I know. I used to tell myself that all the time, Dana. I would be like, because I hated starting my podcast. The thought of guesting on podcasts made me want to throw up. But I was like, okay, what's going to be worse? Me feeling sick to my stomach about going on the podcast, or me not sleeping at night because I'm not doing it and I'm annoyed at myself and I feel the guilt. Everyone else is doing it. I know it's going to help me. And it's like, if I'm gonna feel that anyways, I might as well just do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know. And you do feel better afterwards. It's like, yay, look at
You do.
me. It wasn't perfect, but I did it. It does feel good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole feeling uncomfortable thing. Oh my goodness. I think it's just an ongoing thing that'll just be part of you throughout your entrepreneurial journey, whether you like it or not. So live with it.
Absolutely. I shared with a friend the other day, as my son just turned 13, so I now have a teenager in the house this
Ah,
week. And so often we talk about how the road of an entrepreneur is the biggest, best personal growth roller coaster you will ever be on. So is parenting.
oh,
And so for anyone who has experienced that or witnessed other good friends going through it, every day is a new opportunity. And sometimes we're comfortable and sometimes we're very uncomfortable. And the doubt, the fear, all of that
yeah.
can
Mhm.
creep in. And just like in parenting, our goal is to raise well-equipped young adults who can handle the world with their tools. That's the same in growing a podcast. We have that end goal. The end goal is to be serving a particular niche and to keep this movement going. And when we stay focused on the goal and the why, I think that's one thing I did not reference today, is to
Mhm.
understand what is the why behind your podcast? What is the why behind wanting to get booked on other
Mhm.
podcasts? What is the why behind wanting more clients? And it's never just about the money. It's always about what the money can do.
Yeah, that is true. And I, again, going back to that comparison thing, it's like everyone has a different why.
Yeah.
So success looks different to different people. It's
Yep.
like for me, I did my podcast to, put my stake in the ground within the podcasting industry, help people that are launching podcasts,
Mhm.
guesting on podcasts, and meet other people in the industry.
Yep.
So, whether what my downloads are, my rankings, how I rate compared to other podcasts, I honestly don't care. Like I look
Mm.
at it, but
Yep.
it's not a maker or breaker to me. It's
Yep.
my otherwise, it's the collaborations, the relationships, the partnerships.
Yep.
Um, so I think when you have that in your head, I feel like you can let the other stuff go a little bit easier.
Absolutely. You had the end in mind. You knew your why in doing the podcast. And chances are, as you're focused on your number one priority, the others are growing.
Yes, they are, thankfully. And sometimes you get caught up, right? It's like, ooh, what
Sure.
are the rankings? And you get emails, what are the stats? It's like, oh, well, what are other people's stats? And it's
Yeah.
hard not to get caught up, but you got to like, okay, let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
Now, so explain to me a little bit about how you work with your clients. I know obviously you help them grow to seven figures and beyond, many of them having podcasts, guesting on podcasts, and being an authority. Yeah, I would love just kind of like an inside peek as to how you work with them.
Absolutely. I am a recovering corporate workaholic. I spent 20 years in corporate consulting before launching my own business. And um, I launched my business because I had my son 2 months before I turned 40. And he was this first 6 months, I did not have to travel. And then I had to travel again. And there was one
Ooh,
defining moment where I was in a hotel room in Texas, loving what I did. And yet that night I was crying because I wanted to be home with my son. He was 9 months old. This is not what I
oh,
wanted. And so I share all of that because it's really paramount for me when I work with every single client that comes on board, is that they get really clear on what is the life they want to be creating. What are the hours that they want to have available in their life outside of the office?
mhm.
Meaning, and then by default, what hours do they want to be working in the business? Because I want to make sure that we build the business that supports the life they want and that they are not left trying to squeeze life in around the business. That's what I did for 20 years.
Yeah.
In my 20s and 30s, it was okay. I had that defining moment. It was no longer okay to live that way. And so I have them really set goals in 5 different areas. and it's to incorporate both their personal life and their business. So they will set health goals. That can be, anything from medical, mindful, emotional, spiritual, physical goals. We focus on relationships. Typically, it's their primary relationship. Sometimes they also may want to have dates with their kids, date with their grandkids, and just ensuring that they're building the support system in relationships that they want outside of the office. Financial goals, both personally and professionally, business goals, that's when we're getting into the meat and potatoes, the KPIs, the revenue, the team building, the systems. Then the fifth pillar is leadership. And that is, for me, I view that as, who do all of those other goals require you to become?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really that opportunity to step into that next level version of you that is bringing the team up, that is bringing the systems up, that's bringing the clients in. And you're able to experience, because of the focus on the health and relationships also, you're having a lot more fun, a lot more joy, a lot more fulfillment along the way. And scientifically, there have been studies, it's been proven, the happier you are, the more joy you experience, the more fulfilled you feel on a daily basis, you show up differently. You
Hmm.
show up as the next best version of yourself in your business, in your podcast. And that, I believe, is the most fundamental way for you to establish the true long-term sustainable growth that you're after. And a number of my clients are looking to sell franchises. They've become franchisors, looking for franchisees. Others are adding second locations, or they're already putting together their exit plan. They know that
Oh, wow.
10, 5, 10, 15 years from now, they want to be selling their business. And so they are very much thinking about, again, that end goal and who they need to become in this process.
Yeah. Ooh, very thorough.
I like to be. And
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot, but I think the key is that we always approach it in bite-size steps, because
Yeah.
we do want to have those micro wins along the
Oh,
way,
yeah.
and those benchmarks that we get to celebrate to get to the milestones.
Yeah. Absolutely. You got to have wins along the way or it's hard to keep going.
It is. It is. It becomes, it all of a sudden can easily feel like what corporate employees often feel a Monday morning is. We don't want to feel Mondays. We want to really enjoy what we're doing along the way,
Yeah.
and have fun at it. So
Yeah.
that's where celebrating the wins comes in.
Nice. Now, I know you can help people. You have got a diagnostic tool to help them figure out kind of like what's preventing them from the next growth. Yeah, I would love for you
Yes.
to share it with the listeners.
Absolutely. And this, if you are interested, I have a diagnostic tool that is about, I think it's 33 or 35 questions that you'll answer. And from that, we can really dive into knowing, where are you feeling there is the weakest support in your business, whether it's with the talent, with the systems, with understanding your numbers, your leadership, the sales, the marketing, to really get clear on where will you be best served to focus in the
Mm,
next quarter to really be building out a robust engine that will accomplish those goals. So it is a seven-figure, almost bottleneck diagnostic
ooh,
tool, because we're looking to see where are those bottlenecks. And so if you're interested in that, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Dana Earhart, and just message me diagnostic tool, and I will get that off to you. The tool itself is no charge. And then once you get the results, if you'd like to dive in and really create, we can have a strategy session where we create the roadmap for how do you take this tool and use it to start implementing changes in your business and move that needle forward.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came on. I think you really hopefully given people the confidence that they can grow to the next level in their podcast, in their business, and given some insights as to what's holding them back and how they can move the needle forward.
Absolutely. That certainly was my hope. Thank you so much for having me here. I know we could probably talk for another hour if it's just the two of us.
Exactly. I know.
But we have podcasts to grow and businesses to grow.
Yes, wholeheartedly. Fabulous. Thanks again, Dana. I so appreciate you. And we'll see you next week, folks, on the Leverage Your Podcast show.
Bye-bye.